You're watching Morning at NTV.
Is brought to you by
ITEL Mobile.
Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us right here on the #1 breakfast show in the country, Morning at NTV. My name is Rami Busiku. We're getting into our Tech Note conversation of the day. We want to unpack the police brutality that was meted out on civilians on November 18th and November 19th. We do understand, according to the government figures, that 54 people were killed within that fracas. 32 people were actively involved within the protest and were killed as a result of direct confrontation with the security apparatus. That's according to the police. And 20 people were actually killed by stray bullets from very errant security officers. And 2 of those people were killed in an accident. A car rammed into a group of people around Ben Chuanka Street. That's around 54 people. 20 are caught unaware, 32 directly involved, and 2 people were simply killed in that accident. But then we do have Anthony Wameli. He is the head of the legal department at the National Unity Platform Party, and he tells me that they do have different numbers. They do understand that more than 800 people were arrested, and they do know that more than 54 people were killed in those protests. As government carries out its own audit into the killings, is the National Unity Platform Party also carrying out its own audit into the killings in that regard. But that's not the only conversation we shall be having. I also do have Mr. Dennis Twahika Njochi. He is the aspiring member of parliament for Ishaka municipality in Bushenyi. He tells me that there's a concerted effort by NRM members to suffocate independence within that jurisdiction and other parts of the country, just like what you're seeing happening to other opposition loyalists in that regard. Let me introduce the gentlemen. They both join me right here in studio. Very good morning, Dennis and Anthony.
Good morning. Thank you for it.
All right, Anthony, let's start with what is happening within the National Unity Platform Party, the legal aspect. Since November 18th and 19th, government has been telling us that they are carrying out their own investigations to get to a certain culpability. Which officers were errantly killing people and which civilians were actually caught unaware in the whole fracas? We want to know from you, what are the correct aggregations according to your investigations?
Well, first of all, it's very hard to believe the government right now because it's preoccupied with probably knowing the numbers more than knowing the people who actually committed the offenses or the wrongs. You know, in Ugandan law, every death is taken to be a homicide unless it's excusable by the law. So if someone dies, ideally there has to be at least a general inquiry file or another kind of investigation to first of all confirm the cause of the death and then excuse it if it's excusable. If someone, for example, says we have killed in self-defense, then they have to be in court because you do not plead self-defense in public. So the figures can well be above the 54. Reason being, by the time Kyagulanyi was released on bail to come, and we had our first kind of meeting to brief with the family and also to brief with our foreign comrades, we had well over 50 already, and the government was putting that way below the 50 mark. So I think our preoccupation now is to find justice, first of all, for the people that lost their lives and properties. Then number 2, we can now talk about compensation and also how we could avoid such incidents in the future.
Well, government is saying the 32 people who are actively involved with a direct confrontation with the police and they're killed in the line of that fracas will not be compensated. Is that prescribed in the law?
Of course not, because at the end of the day, like I've said, every death is supposed to be accounted for. The moment someone dies, we have to find the cause. If the cause is natural, if the cause is self-inflicted, then you could say that person is not entitled to compensation. But if that death is unlawful, then the person that has lost their life through the relatives that are still alive are entitled to compensation.
Okay, before Robert Kyagulanyi was released on bail, that was November 20th, the Jinja Chief Magistrate, that is Catherine Aguero, warned him and said, if we release you on bail, please do not hold the same precisions that we have been seeing, because that shall be a model or a line for the revocation of the bail. But then we've continued to see Robert Kyagulanyi hold his campaigns unabated, but then we've seen the processions of people following him, the same precursor that led to the violence on November 18th. Don't you think his bail might be revoked because of that ground?
Well, first of all, the conditions, or that particular condition was unfortunate. It's rather unfortunate, and as a legal team, we have prepared an application in the High Court to revise that decision, especially in that particular aspect of not holding processions. Because if a magistrate or a judicial officer is handling a bail application, they do not go into the merits of the case. They do not go into whether the person has committed an offense or not. Because once you do that, you have prejudged them. Kyagulanyi has not been tried for committing an offense or flouting any laws. He has not been convicted. So you cannot say you have been doing this and please stop doing that. We believe that if what is doing is not lawful, then there should be a finding. But number two, the question is it even applicable? Is it even practical? Isn't it curtailing the presidential candidate's campaign? Because how will he address the people, and how will he stop the people from following him? We have video clips that from the time Kyagulanyi was released, other candidates have also been gathering crowds, and not because they have invited them, but because this is an electioneering period. People are excited. People want to see the leaders that are going to take them on in the next 5 years. So I think that is the most unfortunate that the magistrate could say, and we are going to have it challenged in the High Court, plus other aspects of the trial that we think should be handled now before we go into the hearing of the case, including his human rights violations.
But then we haven't seen President Museveni being called into court because some of his surrogates have been mounting huge processions. We saw what happened in Badara yesterday. Huge processions were taking center stage under the watchful eye of the security apparatus. We're just looking on. So do you think we are just dealing with a case of selective application of the law? Exactly.
Actually, a selective application of the law by way of persecuting particular individuals, political persecution. And you see, under Article 43 of the Constitution, all the other rights that are listed in the Constitution can be derogated upon, but with justifiable causes like public interest, and they shall not be political persecution. You have just mentioned that case. We have had ministers like Kasolo Haruna being summoned allegedly to make statements at police because they have flouted the guidelines. But the way Kyagulanyi was handled, because he had allegedly flouted the guidelines, was ruthless, was brutal, and that's the selective application of the law that we want to fight. And that ruling in Iganga, that was made in Iganga, just goes to try and further that kind of discrimination against a particular candidate, and I think that's what we should be challenging.
Speaking of political persecution, I do have a guest with me in studio, Mr. Dennis Twaika Injochi. He's one that has also met the full wrath of the NRM party as an independent. During the primaries, Mr. Injochi was not very, very satisfied by the whole process. He did not participate. He did not participate in that process. He stopped participating in 2010 because he noticed there was something wrong with the whole machinations in the internal primaries within the NRM. So since then, you've met the full wrath of the NRM party. Why are they so hard against independents that were once NRM leaning? Go ahead.
I think the situation is general. It's general in nature, and it actually goes to whether independent candidates are constitutionally recognized. When you get into the constitutionality of independent candidates, you actually find it in Article 72, Clause 4 of our Constitution. I can actually read it verbatim here. What does it say? It says...
Independent candidates have the rights to participate in the electoral processes of this country.
72. That Article 72, Clause 4, any person is free to stand for an election as a candidate independent of a political organization or political party. Meaning that there are liberties guaranteed by the Constitution. An independent candidate is equally the same as any other candidate fronted by the political party. But for him or her, he is independent of any political organization. In other words, he or she fulfills all the requirements actually needed by the Electoral Commission. For example, if it means I paid 3 million, I think NUP candidates also at the parliamentary level or NRM or FDC paid 3 million. I was required to collect signatures. That's what I did. Everything that was demanded by the Electoral Commission, actually we fulfilled them. In other words, constitutionally, there is independents are actually recognized, and independent candidates are a formidable force. Why do I get that formidability? When you look at the numbers, in the 2021 general elections, independents at parliamentary level, they constitute 50.3%. 50.3%. Actually, they are bigger than almost all the parties combined. NRM has got, in fact, independents have got 1,338 contestants countrywide. Then NRM has got 1,321. FDC has got 281. NUP has got 242. ANT has got 116.
So, Dennis and Jochi, we would like to know, why is there so much pressure on the independents within this election? Why is the NRM so threatened by the fact that you independents are in this race?
It is because of that formidability. But then there is vulnerability. Because an independent acts individually.
So you are a majority that cannot be controlled?
Yes,
so
no, a majority that lacks a coherent philosophy. You find in Butambara or in Bushenyi municipality, for example, where I am, I'm contesting as an independent, but there is an independent in Guru, there is an independent, there are independents in Mbari, Ergon, there are independents in Buganda, but we are not coordinated, we don't have a voice. Then you find that the state structures, the NRM, flag bearers, and their system of coalescing around the president, because for example now they are claiming that they must look for President Museveni's votes. So there is that claim that independents are not known, they are not predicted. So therefore, and they are the ones in a way who are holding some vote of NRM. But I have really observed in some areas, for example in my area Bushenyi and Western Uganda, that independents are not against any presidential candidate. They are not actually against any. For them, they are looking for their votes to offer leadership. But then there is that suspicion that these independents may cross any time to any side. So why don't we crush them? Why don't we crush them? So and there is that psychological propaganda that independents are outlaws. They are not supposed to be there, as if this country has fully embraced multipartyism. And to my understanding, it has not.
Because well, you're telling me that this country hasn't fully embraced multi-party politics? We are still under the movement system?
No, but in fact, we are implementing almost much of the elements of the movement system. For example, President Museveni is 2 in 1. President Museveni, the solo candidate, is actually operating under Article 70, the movement political system, which is even still in our constitution, the individual merit, and actually also goes into the Article 72, clause 4, more or less an independent candidate, because he was never subjected to any election. But then there is President Museveni, the flag bearer, who there is a presumption or a claim that he was endorsed by the NRM structures. So he presents 2 faces in an election. The one face is an independent, individual merit. Another face he is claiming to be a flag bearer. So the party now claims the other side, the side B. Then some other independents also claim that this is our person. They claim this. So there is a problem of not having fully embraced multipartyism, and even parties have not been given a platform to operate. They have not. The way you see how the state has not actually harbored that goodwill to see parties or multipartyism flourishing as a philosophy. In other words, would be actually embracing group politics. But even when you look at how primaries were conducted, and for example, let me take the example of the movement, of the NRM, the adult suffrage method of where all people must vote, irrespective of where that person is in the register or not. That one alone actually harbors much of the elements of the movement system, the mass movement ideology. So that one actually denies even some political parties the chance to mobilize and recruit, because the idea behind the adult suffrage here is that by the time we get into the general election, all people would have participated in an election of one party. And that one is against actually against the constitution of Article 75, prohibition of one party state. In fact, when you see how we participate and other political parties, the way they are struggling, in fact, when you look at the numbers here, the ones I've read, when you see NRM 1,321, FDC 281, NUP 242, anti 116. This one actually is designed. I'm not saying that it is actually a way of suffocating multipartyism from growing. Now, that one actually leaves no room. It actually leaves no room for independent thinking people. In fact, we only find refuge in Article 72, Clause 2, Clause 4. That's why we came up with our pressure group. Article 72, Clause 4, Independent Solidarity 2021 elections, to articulate our position and defend our political space and interest.
So the viewer who is watching this Njochi would like to know, how is the NRM crushing independence? Give us examples. Now, for instance, today is going to be in your jurisdiction, Bushenyi. That's where the president is coming to campaign. So give us examples. How are they going to crush the independence within that area to give more space to President Museveni?
For example, when the president was coming, there were announcements on radio that all flag bearers are invited for meetings. All flag from sub-county level, these councillors, up to the parliamentary level. This, what does this mean? This one now leaves out independence. Then these people are actually funded. They are funded. I'm not saying that independence should be funded, but I'm saying, and two, they have actually gotten some state agencies by their side. And then even when they are talking, they talk and depict independence as people who have rebelled. And they don't want to look at the weaknesses of primaries. For example, if me, I observed the primaries, for example, of the movement. I don't want to go to, because NRM is the ruling and is the pace setter. I saw there was no attempt to emphasize disciplinary action in the whole process.
People not allowed to vote, yet they are
even money was distributed openly, abusing each other, doing things that were not supposed to be done, which are actually even contrary to the law. But there were no attempts to institute.
The good thing, Dennis Njochi, we do have a legal person with us in our midst, Anthony Wameli. Let him just interrogate.
Let me make this statement. But then there was this attempt to create a elections dispute resolution tribunal.
Yes, I
so how can you really skip on the disciplinary aspect and then you rush to the disputes, the election disputes resolution tribunal? It's contradictory.
That's why it was not resolved.
That's why it was not resolved. Now, if someone comes up as an independent, why should you really bring the state machinery
to crush
such a person?
Anthony,
you are the one who created that independent.
What do you make of this? What do you make of this?
Well, I think, first of all, it's unfortunate. I agree with him largely on the aspect of a de facto one-party state kind of arrangement, that at the end of the day, we appear to only have one political party, that is the NRM. You just asked me a question about the candidates that are doing rounds in the campaigns, and the NRM are untouchables. Then other parties are being suffocated left, right, and center. Actually, the president made statements to the effect that by 2021 we will not have any opposition political party. In effect, he was saying Uganda will only have one political party, because he did not say we will not have any political party. He said NRM is strong. By 2021, we shall not have any other political party opposing NRM. In other words, it's his intention that no other political party exists, at least fairly, in Uganda. And then number two, when you talk about the primaries, I happen to have represented some NRM people that lost in the primaries, and one particular case is involved forgery, direct forgery by the registrars in a particular constituency, where someone was winning by 200 votes, and this particular village delayed to bring in their results, and when the results came in, the person that was number 2 was leading by 300 votes, and reason is they had returned about 3,000 votes in favor of a particular candidate,
see.
yet the average number of voters in that particular area was at least 800 voters per village.
So it wasn't an election, it was a selection process.
Exactly, it was, and it was a clear case of forgery. People's signatures had been forged, and we submitted everything to the Tango Doi Electoral Commission committee, and they did not do anything about that. They actually just brushed it off and said we shall now hand. They actually maintained the status quo. So, and I think this now will feed into the national election. It just shows you what we can expect, because if it's a ruling party, it's a pace setter, like he has said, it means they're going to determine a lot in what happens in the forthcoming election. I think what is most important is that President Museveni needs to rethink where this country should go, because elections is not a mere process that we always do and sit back. It happened in 82, 81 when an election was rigged. We know what happened the next 5 years, so we don't want to go down that road. I think if someone chooses to be an independent candidate and he's allowed in law, he should be allowed to run. If someone is a candidate for a political party, first of all, the political party should make sure that this person is the actual candidate according to the votes of the people cast. And then number two, he should also be given favor and protection by the party, but also considering the laws and the guidelines that are put in place. If we don't do that, then we run the risk of plunging this country back into chaos.
Indeed. Anthony, given the fact that we do have the information that seems to indicate that there was rife corruption or bribery that took center stage within the NRM primaries, people rigged to get onto the national stage of the election. So where's the assurance that this person who rigged at the lower primary level won't be rigging at the national stage of the elections? And also what we are seeing, security apparatus stopping presidential candidates on official campaign trails in their tracks from messaging with their voters. Do you intend to use all these factors at the end of the day if President Museveni wins and say that, you know what, it's these factors that might have led to the opposition maybe not losing this election and we are going to court?
Yeah, you see, when you don't know who will petition, probably it could be President Museveni petitioning when Kyagulanyi wins. So President Museveni might plead, that they are not free and fair elections because of what's transpired. But
that would be the day.
The bottom line is the legalese aside. We have a country, we have a generation that we need to run properly and carefully, because anything can cause havoc and chaos. So I believe that this is just a precursor of what we can expect. I am actually running for Member of Parliament, Namisindu County. I'm not in NRM, but I have about one NRM candidate and about four independent candidates from NRM, and what I hear from their camp, it's actually unfortunate that is what happened. And like I have said, the other state apparatus, especially the RDCs and the DISOs, have this mentality. I don't know where they picked it from, that if you see an NRM candidate, that is the president's candidate, and he should or she should be allowed everything, and any other person is, for example, when Kyagulanyi was nominated, he was arrested, and the police boss wrote and said, or rather the spokesperson said that Kyagulanyi and Amuriat are opposition figures that were trying to cause chaos in Kampala. Now, if a policeman says a presidential candidate is an opposition figure, that is already biased, because Kyagulanyi is not an opposition figure. He is a presidential candidate and a potential president of this country. So you treat him as a candidate but not as an opposition, because it means he is opposing President Museveni, who is on your side, and I think that is unfortunate.
And we've also seen security apparatus, security officials who are high up the UPDF ranks come out to say that, you know what, even if Kyagulanyi were to win this election, we want to give power to ideologically bankrupt group of young people. What do you make of all these statements, and is it right to make such statements under our constitution?
They are unfortunate. They are unfortunate, but it's on record that even when President Museveni lost an election, he got one vote and went to the bush. They asked Obote whether he would sit with him and said, over what? This is a fugitive, he's not a Ugandan, he's not popular, he's not known anywhere. He has just burnt some buses here and there and ambulances, and we cannot talk with him. And number two, the president himself has had it on record that he is not ready to leave power. He said he has a mission. He has a mission to integrate Africa, to integrate East Africa. So that kind of speech tends to leave people with no other option in the law on how to change leadership. Number three, if these are bankrupt, people bankrupt of ideas. They are the product of President Museveni. He has fathered them and now grandfathering them for the last 35 years. So this is the best he could produce, and he should bear with that, that if Kyagulanyi is bankrupt as regards knowledge of how to run a country, his grandfather now, President Museveni, is the one to blame, because he's the one that brought up such a person. He should actually be glad that in his misrule, someone has tried at least to come up and show that he can lead the country to this magnitude. And I think the security agencies should know that they're here for the people. They're not here for a regime, because regimes come and go. But they're here to serve their country. They're here to serve the constitution.
Anthony Wameli, do you think such callous factors such as, let me see, over-commercialization of politics, corruption, bribery, let's see, what else, selective application of the law, do you think all factors put together, they negate the messaging that is coming over from the Electoral Commission that this election is going to be free and fair?
Yeah, it does, because at the end of the day, if the Electoral Commission thinks it's going to be free and fair, it has to be seen. For us in law, we say justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. So a free and fair election should not only be seen on the polling day, on the results day, but the process should continue. You know that from the beginning of consultations, people are not allowed to consult. COVID was just a scapegoat that was used, and all these brutalities. If you have over 50 dead bodies in an election in a period of less than 3 weeks, and then you don't have any report. You have not talked about the people who are languishing in prison, who might actually not vote just because they were found in the fracas caused by the police, largely because they just didn't want someone to reach a particular area. So all this put together shows us that we are far from a free and fair election, and what we are trying to do now is try to salvage the situation, is try to get the best out of the worst scenario that we have, that we can get out of this thing.
Anthony Wameli is the head of legal at the National Unity Platform offices. He's not alone. I do also have Dennis Twahika Njochi. He is the aspiring member of parliament for Ishaka municipality in Bushenyi. At this opportune moment, allow us to take you to Mbarara, where my reporter Habad Ziwa is on standby to give us the latest updates on the official presidential campaign trail of the incumbent Yoweri Museveni. Very good morning, Habad Ziwa. What's the latest?
Good morning, Romeo, and the viewers wherever you're watching from. We are here in Mbarara, and we have just experienced a heavy downpour. It rained early in the morning, but nevertheless, people here are going about with their normal businesses. But I've seen on the streets a few people are putting on masks, to be honest, apart from a few centers like hotels, restaurants, and big shops. That's where you find people observing the SOPs. But the rest of the population, especially those doing informal jobs, don't care about the masks and SOPs. But away from that, the NRM candidate Yoweri Museveni is now on his second day in Ankole sub-region, looking out for votes. And from Mbarara yesterday to today, he's heading to Bushenyi to meet the NRM leaders from Bushenyi district, Mitoma, Buhweju, and Shema districts. These districts, if you look at them, you would say that they're also predominantly NRM, going by the 2016 general elections results, where we saw NRM coming on top with the majority of the votes and majority of members of parliament. Apart from Buhweju County, where Honorable Francis Mojuchi of the FDC comes from, the rest of the members of parliament are from NRM. So that shows you the strength of the party in the region. So we wait to see what 2021 will bring on table, whether the FDC or the National Unity Platform will enter into the NRM territory in Bushenyi. It is also here in Bushenyi that we saw and to be specific, in Shema municipality, where we saw some violence during the NRM primaries between Dr. Erioda Tumwesije and Dixon's Kateshumbwa. So, but at the end of that day, Kateshumbwa came out as the win of the NRM primaries. But Tumwesije came back in the NRM primary, in the general elections, and is contesting as an independent. So we wait to see how this election will also go around. As I reported yesterday in my story, there is too much tension in many areas here in Western Uganda after what came out of the primaries. Majority of those who lost came back as independents, and this has escalated the tension. And we were also told yesterday that some independents are now colluding with the opposition to go against the official flag bearers of the party. But we know meetings are going on with the party chairman to ensure that this situation is resolved. So that is the situation here in Western Uganda as we are still monitoring Yoweri Museveni, the NRM candidate seeking another mandate in office to continue his role to 40 years. Back to you in the studios.
Thank you very much, my brother Herbert Ziwa, linking to us from Mbarara. Well, President Museveni shall be in Bushenyi today to get on ahead with this presidential campaign trail. Like you notice, independents within those jurisdictions are colluding with the opposition to actually put up a concerted or protracted fight against the official NRM flag bearers from those jurisdictions. I do have one of those individuals, an independent, who broke away from the NRM party, and we want to know more from that situation. Njochi, you were telling us about how hard it has been for you to campaign. Remember, if you're an NRM flag bearer, you get some kind of funding from the party. But as an independent, how hard has it been for you to campaign during this COVID-19 pandemic?
It's not easy. But of course, when you are committed, you push on. But it's not easy. First of all, we are actually being treated like aliens of the process. Aliens. First of all, they don't look at you as someone who is supposed to contest, who is really articulating a position to offer leadership to a people. Or they say, for them, they think you should have been absorbed in our system. The fact that you said you don't want to be part of our fraud. So we are actually entrenched. We are going to deal with you. First of all, they are given state resources. Then they are, of course, is talked about the security apparatus, and then the RDCs, the DSOs, GSOs, and all those. Even the police is biased. And then they own the means of communication, like the media.
Essentially, what is happening to opposition people is happening to the independents.
Exactly. And two, this idea of colluding with the opposition. Who is colluding with the opposition? First of all, independents are independents. But they are not colluding, but they are trying. And two, I think we also need to resolve this as a country. This demonization of that concept of opposition is not good. What if someone is opposing your wrongs?
I see.
Now who is now wrong? The one who is opposing your wrongs or the one who is perpetuating the wrong?
I see.
So to me, this demonization, and our population is gullible, too gullible, to an extent that whatever is channeled into their minds, it is consumed wholesale. So we have a problem. And to look at the media, all the media houses almost, these media, they are owned by NRM gurus.
Right.
You cannot, and now the price of airtime has gone up. For you to get an hour, you need like 1 million, 1.5. For them, they create programs
For themselves.
And then they get the airtime. So it is really not easy, but we are pushing on, because this is our country.
So moving forward, Mr. Njochi, what are the demands of the Article 72 Clause 4 Solidarity Pressure Group moving forward?
Article 72 Clause 4 Solidarity Independence 2021 election is to tell the country, to tell the state, to put it to the state and the government and NRM that independent candidates are constitutionally recognized. They share equal rights and equal liberties with any other. So that one should not be, there should not be demonization of independent candidates. It shouldn't. And two, even the treatment of other contestants, we actually call for civility, for civilized competition. We don't want to be seen as if we are enemies of each other. We demand for that. And two, we are calling upon the independents to start with immediate networking. Let us emerge and speak with one voice. Because this formidability, we are a formidable force. We are a formidable force. We can even decide to swing this vote to whoever, because ours is parliamentary and local. We can decide with one voice to swing this vote to any candidate, to any candidate of our choice at a presidential level. So we shouldn't be mistreated when we are not mistreating any person. We shouldn't. And two, we must come together. We must come together. We must articulate, because me, I'm the interim coordinator. I am articulating the position of independence in this race. And we are very many. So we are actually soon organizing to have a national conference of independence in Kampala here and in other regions, and even move up to the district to show that independence candidates are actually contesting because of that devotion to offer leadership to the country. And there is no correct line as far as our politics in Uganda is now. You can't say that the movement, the NRM, presents the ultimate correct line. No, we have seen faults. We are seeing faults there. You cannot say that NUP actually presents the ultimate correct line, or FDC, or ANT. No, we are all aspiring and fighting to perfect the politics and the leadership of our country. But then there must be respect for each other. Independent candidates should be respected, and they shouldn't be seen to be against the movement. For what?
Anthony Wameli,
We can't
I
do-
think
we
Mr.
can't-
what
we
Ms.
can't-
Njochi is talking about
we
has
can't
something to
continue
do
like
with
this.
politics of identity. In that if you're not within the NRM, you will not get that respect politically that you need if you're not within the FDC or NUP. So we are dealing with politics of identity. And on Monday, the president was in the Greater Ankole sub-region, and he was asked, what is the biggest problem that is forcing Africa to lag behind? And he said, it's the politics of identity. It has pulled Africa way behind. And then we're looking at the facts, and we notice the president has been in power since 1986. So wouldn't you say that that is politics of identity, and the president was actually shooting himself in the leg?
Definitely, he does. He does shoot himself in the leg so many times. That is politics of identity. If you look at the NRM, he has just told you that President Museveni has never contested for that position in the NRM at any point. And actually they will tell you that as long as we still have someone who is as strong as Museveni, we'll do so. And number two, President Museveni in this campaign has hit especially Kyagulanyi below the belt so many times by demonizing the person of Kyagulanyi, claiming that he's collecting money from supporters of homosexuality, which is not true, which is actually very unfortunate for a leader to make such allegations. He's claiming that we are getting funding from people that want to destabilize the country. That is also false, and that is also wrong campaigning according to the guidelines, and so many aspects. So if you talk about politics of personalities and individuals, then President Museveni is the master of them all. That is what he thrives on. That's why he calls himself the Sabalwanyi. That is putting himself above the other person. That's why he says he's the only visionary leader in Uganda. Yet in the beginning, as he came and claimed that he was bringing a fundamental change and not a mere change of guards, he claimed that he is bringing a platform where people have fair competition, where people will be able to compete for positions of leadership and take them on. If someone is competing for a position of leadership, they should be able fairly and squarely under the law to achieve that. And I think that's why you realize that if someone becomes an independent, their identity is tarnished, so that people look at him as someone who is a mishap, someone who should not exist in the political atmosphere. So if that is said by President Museveni, that is hypocrisy of the highest order.
Are there any prescriptions in the law to help Mr. Njochi and other candidates like himself moving forward?
Yes, first of all, everyone under Article 21, everyone is equal and the same under and above and within the law. So if the law says you can have candidates of this caliber, being a political party sponsored candidate doesn't put you above any other candidate. That's number one. Number two, the way they vote in independence is the same way they're going to vote in any party candidate. I am on the NUP card for Namisindwa County. I don't have any competitor, but even if I did, that person will appear on the ballot paper the same way I should be appearing on the ballot paper. So that's number one. Number two is that at the end of the day, we, the voters or the people power, is going to determine who comes. It's not about NRM saying this is the person. You remember President Museveni was in Bujiri and he told the people that bring for me even sleeping MPs. I will endorse them and they will bring you services. He went to Kyagulanyi's area in Chadondo, said Binosibya kuyimba. Then Kyagulanyi got the biggest number of votes that anyone has ever garnered at parliamentary level, because the people that are watching us, the people on the grassroots, know who they want to lead them. Your propaganda and your lies can cannot change their decision. That is why he doesn't want to allow people to reach the electorate to tell them their program. It's your program, it is your commitment, it's what people have seen in you that will determine, not your party or your independence.
And also, following the aftermath of the protests on November 18th, 19th, that saw 54 people getting killed, we saw the President Yoweri Museveni, who also happens to be a presidential candidate in this race, come out to say that police shall be replaced by the army in quelling of the protests. Do you think this was prescribed in the law?
It's not, and well, whether or not it's prescribed, I think that is President Museveni's law. And it's not the beginning. He has been doing this all the time. Every presidential election petition that has come to court, the participation of the military and the army in the politics has been a center stage issue. Because at the end of the day, he's a soldier, and we don't even have evidence whether he actually resigned or retired from active military service, like it's supposed to be under the UPDF Act, because if he did not effectively resign as a military officer, then he cannot even head the NRM political party, because he will now be a serving UPDF officer. He should only retain the title that is given him under the Act and the law, the Constitution, as the head of the UPDF, and that is more of ceremonial than active politics. But number two, he knows that in the chain of command, the army is easier commanded by him because of his background than the police, because the police is civilian. The police is actually so civil that at the end of the day, it will embrace things as human rights. That's why what some of the leaders in the military, the army, will tell you that for us, we are not trained to break legs. For us, we are trained to shoot on the head and to kill. And I think he tends to enjoy that. Number two, he thrives on fear. President Museveni is a propagandist and a person who always thrives on creating tension and fear. That when people see the army with live ammunition, they tend to think twice. Supposing I'm hit by a stray bullet, all that propaganda, stray bullets have killed 20 people, then you think I might be the next victim of a stray bullet, then people will not go ahead with their political activities as they ought to.
So essentially, Anthony Wameli, let me get this straight just for the record, it's like you're saying President Museveni is in charge of this election and not the Electoral Commission.
Exactly. And actually the Electoral Commission first went to him before they came out with their guidelines, and it was on record. Then number two, the army, finally the army has its position in the governance of Uganda. That is largely territorial. They should be called in by the police in case the police cannot handle. So let President Museveni first of all declare that the police is so weak and it cannot handle. That is why the army is handling. Otherwise, for it to just come out of the blue in the name of helping in the guidelines and then end up killing people, I think that is not
Thank
proper.
you very much, Anthony Wameli. Let's give some final remarks to Njochi Dennis Twahika so that you can make your final submission. Do you think the violence we are seeing right now shall actually force some people to stay away from the polls come January 14th?
Of course, it can, but what I know is that Ugandans are vigilant and they should actually come to vote. But largely what we need is respect for each other. If we don't do that, then we are not building a country. And two, let us follow this law. This is the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. And I'm almost a student of laws at Makerere University. I also did some other.
All right.
But I want to tell you this. If we could all stick to this,
all our problems will be solved.
Yes. Maybe we really also need a constitutional review. We need a dialogue. We need a constitutional review commission. And maybe this constitution will be respected if the current leadership is out of office. Because they claim that they are the ones who have fathered it. So they see no reason how this constitution can be above them, in my observation. But if this constitution, as the supreme law of the land, was followed to the latter, I'm telling you, we are capable of having a united, harmonious, and peaceful country.
Dennis Twahika Njochi is the aspiring member of Parliament for, that is Ishaka Municipality in Bushenyi, and he was also not alone. We did have Anthony Wameli. He is the head of legal at the National Unity Platform Party. Many thanks, gentlemen, for having made the time to speak to us. And to you who has been watching Morning at NTV from 6:30 a.m. up to now, many thanks for that undeterred love and support. Let's take a breather. We'll be right back with more information. Keep it here.